Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this very interesting big old guy right here. This is the Tangram Knives by Kaiser Knives Rumble. First off, though, I want to, full disclosure here. This knife was sent to me by the manufacturer. The Kaiser Knives sent this guy along with, I asked to check out the new Feist and the Minitherium, and they decided, hey, you want to check one of these guys out? Like, you know what? Sure, why not? And we'll talk about why I said that a little bit here, but full disclosure, they did send this along. I've told them, as always, I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. It might be a gem, might be junk. They still sent it along, but there you go. This was a review sample freebie, and I'll include this in a charitable giveaway sort of thing coming up in the future here. But there's that. Next thing, size comparison. This is a big knife. Here it is against the Ontario Rat number 1, or number 2. Here it is against the Rat number 1, so it's bigger than both of these knives. Here it is against the Spyderco Delica, I think. Oh, there it is. Okay, here we go. Against Spyderco Delica. And then finally, perhaps the most apt of the comparisons I'm going to do here today, here it is against the Grimsmo Knives Norseman. So, why am I comparing it to the Norseman? Because at some level, it's a pretty straightforward comparison to make. There were a lot of sort of details that are in some ways similar here, and one can't help but feel like maybe somebody, maybe Kim Ning over there, had taken a look at a Norseman once or twice before going ahead and designing this little guy. But the simple fact is that was actually something that was of interest to me. Look, I don't think it goes quite far enough to be considered an homage. It is substantially a different knife. But at the same time, I was wondering whether the things I like about the Norseman, for instance, having this little sub-tip here, or just the overall shape and feeling and ergonomics would translate well into a budget knife. And I'm always looking, even though I am the gem hunter, even though I'm trying to find the best of the best, I was desperately trying, I'm always trying to find something on the budget end that, you know, might be a great option for somebody who may not ever have the means to pick up something higher end like this little guy. And so that's why I decided to pick it up, although I wanted definitely to introduce the elephant in the room here. There's also a shade of Peter Vincenti Satori in there, but whatever it is what it is. So let's go ahead and talk about the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of the Tangram Rumble here. Or let's get ready to rumble! No? Okay, that was hilarious. Just saying. Okay, anyways, on the good side. Start with, this is an ambidextrously clippable knife. You can swap this clip from this side over to this side, and that's absolutely a beautiful thing. And actually, speaking of the clip's nice. It's a good little deep carry style clip. Tension on it is a little bit strong, but you know what? It works fine. It's plenty high. It clips well. It's a good clip. No complaints with that whatsoever. Next thing, ergonomically speaking, this is actually fine. There's definitely a little bit of over jimping here. We'll talk about that later, but overall, this fits well in the hand. The clip is well positioned. It's got this nice wide part at the top there, so you're not getting clip hot spots. Overall, this is pretty solid ergonomically, at least for my relatively small hands. Next thing, this is easily opened by the thumb stud. In fact, the thumb stud is almost a more satisfying approach to opening this knife. Pops open just beautifully. There is really no concern with the thumb stud, even though it also opens fine with the flipper. And by the way, the action on this guy is fine. It is a reliable flipper. 100% always fires. I've never had a missed flip with this guy, never had a missed thumb stud with it. And it doesn't even really require any wrist. The action, although, you know, the action on this guy is 100% freaking fine. It will get the job done and open the blade. Speaking of the blade, that brings us to the last good point here, which is that the blade is a little bit out of the ordinary. 100%. Now, there are some things about it that are fine, that are ordinary. The steel on this guy, Japan Akudo 440, is a relatively lesser-known steel, but according to my buddy Pete over at Cedric A to Gear and Outdoors, he did some cut testing with it and finds it to be in the vicinity of BD1 154 CM. That's not a bad thing whatsoever. Seems like a absolutely fine steel. Next thing, the blade shape itself is pretty unusual with it, and that can actually be a nice thing. As weird as it sounds, you know, people always like, oh, Nick, why are you carrying a sharpened spoon? But there are some benefits here. Particularly, for instance, let's say you got a package here that you want to open, but you want to make sure you're not cutting what's inside. You can just dip this little area here, just dip this little tip down into the package, and that will do all the cutting you need without any risk of, you know, deeper. Okay, I'm not going deeper into those waters. So anyways, moving along. It also has a nice sharpening choil to it. which is nice. And, honestly, you get this little bit of the Tonto-like feeling here, which allows you to use it for scraping. It is a really nice little blade shape. It's got some definite disadvantages, that's for sure. We'll talk about those, but it's unique, it's different, it's off the beaten path. Well, maybe not unique, but it's certainly different and off the beaten path. And so, to me, at least that's what's good here, is that the blade on this guy is out of the ordinary. It opens just fine. The action is perfectly functional. It opens easily with the thumb stud or with the flipper tab. The goes on it fine. The clip is nice and has ambidextrous holes there for it. On the great side, it's $31, and that's a pretty solid price for what you're getting here. I mean, I can't complain too much about this knife for $31. That is a big benefit, and frankly, it's nice to see another knife down in that very low price point. It's just, we need more of that. That's for damn sure. And so to me, at least, that's what's great, is that you're getting something that's a little bit off the beaten path, but for $31. No complaints there. On the bad side, to start with, it is a pretty big knife. Now, this isn't bad for everybody, certainly, but this guy is coming in just a hair over 3.75 inches. It all depends on how you measure and whatnot, but basically, this is a big one. And, particularly in my smaller hands, you can see I'm I'm lost in the middle of this damn thing. It's a big one, 100%. And so that's definitely something you want to keep in mind. It's also not the lightest thing ever, although, again, for the size, it's not so bad. We're coming in here at 4.75 inches for about 4 inches of blade. Okay, not a huge deal. Next thing that is starting to get a little bit bigger in the deal is that this is pretty pocket pecky. Now, mind you, that the clip on this guy keeps it oriented off to the side, which I probably could have mentioned is another good side of this thing. But the simple fact is that that's a factor. That's a thing that's going on here. But the clip on, or I'm sorry, the flipper tab on this guy, although it's very lightly chamfered, is going to be pecking on whatever's in your pocket all day long. Not a great thing. Next thing, the action. It's perfectly serviceable. No complaints there. And it's definitely gotten better with time, but it started out very, very gritty from the factory, and it's gotten better, but it still feels a little grittier than a lot of the other options that you've got out there these days. It's outclassed by some of your budget flippers these days, which is amazing, by the way. The fact that this is now a ho-hum flipper action for $30 is just astounding. But still, the action isn't just amazing. It does drop shut, but it's got a nice long blade, so, whatever, not a huge deal. But actually, one thing that is kind of worth pointing out is that this guy is starting to get a little bit outclassed. For instance, this is the Civivi Praxis? I think it's the Praxis. Either way, it's a Civivi knife. This is We Knives' budget brand. And then this little guy right here is a Ruike Rake P801, I guess. And all of these guys are actually, this feels a little bit behind the game. Honestly, in terms of fit and fit, this is like a G10 and steel sort of thing. These are really pumping it up a little bit. Just the little details, the quality of the finishing, the quality of the action. All of these things, these guys feel a little bit higher end than this guy does, although given both of them are a little bit higher end in price. All I'm saying here is that Kaiser's going to need to be careful with the Tangrams, that they don't fall too far behind, or more importantly, that the prices stay much, much lower if they want to be competing with some of the really high-end budget stuff coming out of China. I'm really kind of nitpicking here, I'm going to be honest with you, but, I want to make sure that I'm doing that. One thing that is absolutely not a nitpick, is a major issue here, is that the recurve is going to suck to sharpen, 100%. Now, there are approaches you can take. For instance, oh, come on, where is that? Right here. Some systems, like, for instance, the KME, will offer a recurve stone, basically, where the stone itself is curved. This is like a guided, sharpening system, like for that. But if you just have, like, conventional flat bench stones, you are going to have a hell of a time getting this guy sharpened up. Instead, you're going to find yourself wanting to use like a rod or some kind of that kind of thing in order to get this guy sharpened back up. That's going to be a major issue, just as it is, and especially given that the recurve is a little bit stronger than on the Norseman. This guy I have sharpened successfully on the KME without extra stones, but still, it's kind of an issue. And then finally, speaking of the Norseman, there are definitely elements there. I mean, this is one of those knives that I think will be regularly haunted by the fact that people go like, oh yeah, it's the Tangram Norseman. Again, it's not an I wouldn't even say it's an homage, but it's a little derivative. Let's go ahead and put it that way. Between this and between this and the Resenti Satori, it's just like, okay, we've seen that all before. Is that a huge deal? No, but it's also a little bit like, okay, yeah, sure. Whatever, though, there you go. So to me, that's what's bad, is that there were some very clear elements that are kind of homage-like here. The recurve on this guy is going to suck the shop it if you've got yourself flat bench stones. It's kind of getting to be to the point where these are getting outclassed by things by like Civivi and Ruwaiki, Rake, whatever. And the action isn't super amazing. It's kind of pocket pecky, a little heavy, a little large. On the ugly front, there are two major issues with this guy. The biggest one of them is right here. They have put this huge row of very aggressive, sharp-cornered jimping right underneath the flipper tab. So every time you flip this, your finger lands and scrapes across 2 or 3 jimps here. And that's not spectacular. That's a bad idea when anybody does it. And by the way, guys, it's not the only people doing this. This is the XM18, which is a $400 knife, and it's doing the same damn thing, but that really bothers me. And unfortunately, this jimping in the back here is also quite sharp. Now, mind you, I could put on a respirator, sand on this G10 a little bit, knock that down, but the thing is, I'd just as soon not have to. And I really think that the jimping up here is not really helping anybody. It would have been much better for them, I think, to put that jimping up here on the blade and solve that problem. Not a big deal, but it's kind of ugly. Just every time you use it, your finger hurts a little bit. And I don't want something that hurts me every time I use it. So there you go. So that, to me, is the ugly here, is that it's got this big jimping under the flipper tab and in the back, and in both places, ergonomically, it's not a win. Final conclusion, this is another budget folder to consider. I know, that's a really strong statement. Oh man, I'm pushing this hard, but this is something that you should remember is under 30 bucks. It's a reasonably solid knife. I mean, at some level it will work fine for cutting tasks. And it has an unusual blade shape, one that's got some pros, definitely. There are some unique kinds of cutting that this is well suited to, and it's definitely got some cons, particularly if you sharpen with bench stones. But the thing is, and then the action on it is fine. It absolutely works, and overall the construction is solid enough. The steel is okay. I mean, for 30 bucks, okay, it's interesting. Mind you, it's also huge. It's also super smooth. It's not super smooth in this area. And it's not super smooth in this area as well. It's a pain to sharpen. It's overly textured. And it's not really the peak of pocket knife value relative to other Chinese brands, which really feel like they're delivering something that feels higher end, even for prices that aren't all that much higher priced. And so I wouldn't call this, and of course it's a little bit derivative, but you know what, it's not a slam dunk, but it is one thing that I think is useful. It is a chance to try something weird inexpensively. This is an area that Cricket, Columbia River Knife and Tool, has, do I have a Cricket around here? Yeah, here's a Cricket. That Cricket has really done a great job of at other points in their knife-making history, where they try some weird approach to knife-making, and they do it at a level that a lot of people can afford. You know, a $30 knife is not out of reach for so many people in the world, assuming that there's still 30 bucks elsewhere. And you know what? I think that's a price at which you can afford to try a weird blade shape. And you can afford to shrug your shoulders and sell it for, you know, even if you pay half the price on sale, you're out 15 bucks. I think you can probably eat that one. And so I like very much that they're giving you the chance to try something weird at a relatively budgety price. But the thing is, at the end of the day, this is a weird piece. It's kind of it's a cheap piece, and only you are really going to know whether this little guy is going to make your heart rumble. So there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.